I think of our healing work with homeopathy is in layers. I think therapy and talking therapy thinks about this as well. You're like peeling back the layers of the onion. So when you've got a baby that hasn't had many layers of trauma or, illness or medication or whatever, creates sort of disharmony in our system, it's very clear to see a baby or a toddler's, their constitution. And what you're doing is you're matching the picture of that person and their character and the way they interact with the environment, how their body is, whether they're hot or cold, how they sleep, how their digestion is, how their stools are, how their skin is, all of these things. And also things that they're frightened of, how their mind works, whether they're social, whether they like groups or just one-to-one connections, what makes them feel frightened. All of these things we take in to build a picture of a character.
So hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the series Through the Magical Doors. I'm Sumaya Adeline, Psychic Alignment Coach, and I have the pleasure of welcoming today Zoe Scanlan to the conversation. Welcome, Zoe.
Hello, Sumaya. Nice to be with you.
And Zoe is actually a family homeopath, and I wanted to have a conversation with Zoe about homeopathy because it's a discipline and a practice and a modality. The medicine of homeopathy is something that we use a lot in my family, and I have benefited tremendously from it. So it's a real pleasure to be speaking with Zoe today. And just to let you know a little bit about Zoe, she's been practicing straight after graduating from doing her diploma in homeopathy, and she's been practicing since 2010. She's currently practicing, she's based in Brighton, but she works online with people, so it does not limit where you might live if you wanted to connect with her. She has she currently runs a homeopathic 3-year diploma in the College of Naturopathic Medicine. I might not be pronouncing it well, in London, in King's Cross. But she also runs a lot of courses, and that's actually, I'm going to share the story of how I met you. You're probably not going to remember, Zoe. She runs a lot of courses for, at the moment, for doulas, using homeopathic remedies in birthing. But also she has specialized a lot, which is how I got to know you, on really kind of informing and educating parents and families and mothers how to use homeopathic remedies in their family life with the children on a day-to-day basis, which is how I got to know you. So she also has written a book, Homeopathy and Natural Remedies for Children. So it's a really good one to have if you really want to be empowered in using homeopathic remedy for your kids and you don't want to be going on Google all the time. And her mission is really to bring homeopathy out there so that people can use it on a day-to-day basis and they feel very comfortable and empowered to be using it for their own health and their own development. So really lovely to have you, Zoe. And I don't know if you remember this, but back in
I'm intrigued. Yeah,
back in 2013, you ran a homeopathy for families, or how to use homeopathy to support your child. It was a course that was run in kind of near London Road somewhere, or kind of, or actually more Preston Park, if I remember well, someone's home. And I was pregnant at the time, and I was very keen to learn how to use homeopathy. And you're kind of the one who introduced me to the Helios kind of remedies, kind of little case, and I absolutely love using it. And I love that you ran that course. It felt very empowering for me at the time, as just about to become a mom. I was still kind of relatively new to the city. I didn't have many friends. It was all happening. It was a lot. And it felt really good to have that session, get the remedies and feel empowered to use them. And interestingly enough, the only experience I have had of homeopathy was once before that, and probably another 10 years before I had come to do your course. And this is the interesting thing. I actually had developed something on my skin, some eczema of sorts. I don't even remember it. And my first point of contact, somehow I found out about homeopathy, and my first point of contact was to get in touch with a lady in London, which is where I used to live at the time, to have a session. And it was shocking how effective it was on like one go. I went and had a really thorough chat with her. It was, I guess, the kind of similar thing to the consultation you do. And I went to see her at her private practice in London. One conversation, she gives me a remedy. I've never had the issue in my life again. And I was so surprised. And it kind of really put it on the map for me. And I know that doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be like the first go, you're going to like get it, like people going to get it right. But it was the case for me. And I was amazed how potent and powerful it was. And then 10 years down the line, I came across your course. So I would love to know about your experience of homeopathy. What kind of got you into it? You know a little bit about my story. I'm curious to know yours. What got you into homeopathy? What was going on in your life at the time? And what led you to then, I guess, not only receive it as medicine for yourself, but kind of go and get into training for it?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's lovely to hear you speak about it. I can't remember which that course was, but I had baby brain back there, because if it was 2013, that was like my list was 3, and I was still pretty much in that state. Sort of like, and managing to do homeopathy at the same time, which was quite amazing. But I mean, hearing your story, it was, no, it's kind of similar. And I think that people find their way into homeopathy, and if they have one of those experiences, and I'll tell you about mine, it really like plants a seed that you can kind of never forget, because it is like, how did that work? And mine was very similar. I mean, the first time I ever came across homeopathy was when I was pregnant. And I was really keen to have a natural birth. So I only just recently actually moved to Brighton as well. This was 2009. That was 2005 actually.
And where were you before that?
I was based in London. I always lived in London. I was brought up in London. I travelled, and then I came back and moved to Brighton. So this was 2005, and I was preparing for, like, determined to have like a home birth. I wanted to do it all naturally. And I went to Neal's Yard in the Kensington Gardens in the lanes in Brighton. And I went in and happened to speak to a homeopath in there, because in there there's lots of, there's there's like aromatherapists and herbalists, but just by chance I spoke to a homeopath, and I came out with this.
Oh wow!
Which is a homeopathic birth kit.
Oh, is that the yellow one?
Yeah, this is the birth kit. So yours is blue. They're like what are called a basic kits, and there's an 18 birth. Your kit, there's an 18 or a 36.
That would be 36 one.
Yeah, okay, great. So that's the one I do recommend people get if they can afford to get it. But there is another one that's just 18 that has, just the remedies in the base. So it's, half the remedies. But I came out with this one knowing literally nothing about homeopathy. And but the lovely woman in the shop said, she just said a few remedies that might help. Like there was aconite that would be good for fear and panic, because I was nervous about it. I can't lie about the labour. And then there was a couple of other ones which I don't really remember now, but I remember going home and writing these notes out on like a little A4 sheet and sticking them on the wall of the birthing room that I was preparing. If this happens, give me this remedy, and if this happens, give me this, for my instructions for my partner. And really in the labour, I don't know how much I actually used the remedies. I do remember we had this wonderful midwife that just sat there very, very quietly. And I just remember her at one point, probably like the transition phase or something like that in the labour.
Yeah, of course.
We could find a remedy for Zoe in the kit, and out came the kit. And I think I was given a remedy, but what it did for me, I was not on the, not in the conscious mind to notice particularly. But it was when my son was 10 weeks old that it really homeopathy really came into my sort of consciousness, because he developed a patch of impetigo on his leg. And it started off as a little blister, which at the time I was so kind of surprised. I was like, where has that blister come from? He hasn't been burnt, like, where's it come from? And then it popped a day or so later. And then obviously the raw skin was exposed, and then it kind of started to grow. And we went off to the doctor, and he said, oh, it's impetigo and you need to take antibiotics. And I mean, it was growing fast and it looked really ugly. I don't know if anybody listening has seen impetigo, but it's not pleasant. And it looks a real contrast and kind of quite an awful look on a brand new baby's skin.
Yeah, and as a parent also, you're kind of terrified to see your kid having also any kind of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not knowing, well, just being a new mum and not really knowing how to really look after a little being yet, we got this recommendation of this prescription of antibiotics, and I was kind of pleading with him, but surely there must be like some cream or something. And he was like, no, it's bad. We need to treat it. And so I kind of remember leaving that doctor's surgery and getting home and thinking, and kind of feeling a bit tormented in my mind, like, oh, I really don't want to, instinctively really not wanting to do it, feeling like he seems so young, like it doesn't feel kind of right.
Yeah, for something as strong as antibiotics.
Yeah, it felt like a bit of a sledgehammer. Yeah. So anyway, I also was very conscious that it was bad, and I didn't want to feel like I was being neglectful or, not responsible. So, and then it popped into my mind that there was a phone number on the back of my homeopathy kit. Dun, 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 here, yes. To Helios, which is a fantastic homeopathic pharmacy based in Tunbridge Wells and Covent Garden. And they have a helpline that you can basically phone up, and they will give you some guidance on acute symptoms. So I phoned them and explained what this skin looked like, what happened. And they sent me a remedy called Ant Crud 30C, which arrived the following day. They've got a fantastically fast service. And I gave him 3 doses of that day. One as soon as it arrived, one around lunchtime, and one in the evening. And when I gave him the evening dose and checked the wound, I thought it looked better, but I thought it can't be. It must be kind of wishful thinking. So I kind of just brushed it aside, put him to bed. But the next morning, no mistaking, the wound had like completely, I want to say completely healed. It hadn't completely healed because obviously there was a scab, but you could see that the wound had completely changed. There was no redness, there was no oozing. It didn't look menacing anymore. And it just looked like a healthy scab. And I was absolutely taken aback. Like, how did that happen? Like, totally. How?
Yes.
Those tiny little pills, like,
yeah.
And if going from something that was so worrying and so horrible looking to just a healthy scab. So that was like,
and
massive.
Also, let's add even the best thing of it, that it's not chemical at all.
Absolutely.
There's nothing chemical about homeopathy. So from antibiotics to getting a treatment from something that's so natural and like totally like benevolent, it's quite a shift, isn't it?
It's a massive shift. And what I know now of antibiotics and how they can kind of undermine the immune system, take all our good bacteria. I'm not saying that there's not a place for them. They can be life-saving for sure. And there's a place, and I truly believe now that there's a place for everything. So, but if you can avoid it and use your natural remedies, which is really where my work is really focused, then that is, that's just wonderful. And I tell you what, it's the best feeling as a mum to feel like, oh my God, yes, that is a win for the mums,
Oh my God, I can't tell you. I'm glad you shared this story, and thank you for sharing it, because it's exactly that. It's the empowerment that comes with it for me. The fact that I'm not even trained as you are, but I can still take the booklet, and I know you might need to experiment with certain things, for very specific things. We contacted you for my son. You supporting my son with some of the remedies you suggested, which I could find online, and not the remedies, but the instructions to get it for that. So I couldn't get it online, and I didn't get it in here and on the booklet. So that was really useful, because that's really minimized his intake of antibiotics, which he gets for when he gets his, like every year he'll get a genital infection. He has a condition with a tight foreskin. And I can honestly say, when we had a session last year, you've suggested, and one of the reasons some homeopathic remedies are missing from here is because I have my easy go-to, have them there on the bookcase. We literally just go and do it. And it's been a lifesaver, because it really has minimized his infections. He hasn't had, he might get the irritation. He might say like, oh, I'm feeling really sensitive down there. but he hasn't like gone to since last year to having an infection or needing antibiotics.
Yeah, that's so good.
So this is like a huge thing, like from needing antibiotics to not needing them, because homeopathy is there, and you don't need to have it prescribed. So tell me a little bit about this. How does it work for those who don't know much about it, the law of similars, and also like about, you know, we talked about not being chemical. What is it? How does it work? And why does it work in a way?
Yes. Yeah. It's really, it's interesting. And I think it's kind of what we're going to be speaking about that now, that can be a bit of a barrier to people understanding how it works, you know, like, because it has to be said actually as well, that there's been a lot of negative press about homeopathy in the last decade.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. The course, like just an example, homeopathy, like the course, the college that I run, that I work with, they've been running for 25 years. They had their anniversary this year. This is the College of Naturopathic Medicine that you mentioned earlier. When they opened, they have lots of different courses: herbalism, nutrition, acupuncture, and homeopathy. And at the very beginning, homeopathy was their biggest course. So just 25 years ago, it was the biggest course.
Wow.
Then there was a period of really strong negative press in the media. And that course basically reduced to nothing. And we've only just started this course again now. And that is just an example of really what's happened in the UK. In India and other countries, it's not like that. It's exceptionally common and kind of part of the normal medical system in many other countries. But in England, this has happened. And it's had a really marked effect on how available homeopathy is, how many people know about it, how many people use it.
Can I ask you, what's your opinion on this? Do you think, because I didn't know anything about the negativity, I know people who will kind of like just sort of brush it off as just really silliness, you know, but is it that people don't like, the mainstream doesn't like the fact that it gives solutions to things that maybe...
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean,
like, I really wouldn't understand why people would want to see issues with it. What do you feel?
Okay, if I'm going to be really frank about it, I do think there's a suppression of natural medicine by the pharmaceutical companies, if I'm perfectly honest with you and frank. And it's not just homeopathy, osteopathy, herbs. There's been a lot of licensing issues that have been kind of imposed on these natural therapies. Yeah, with a view to kind of make it harder for people to access them, make it harder for the pharmacies to make them available because they have to get these really expensive licenses. There's lots of different ways, and just negative press, just, you know, and the fact that you say that people brush it off as kind of nonsense, that is the result of the negative press. Because if you go to India, they're like, you are so respected for being a homeopath in the same way a doctor would be respected. Whereas here, the whole feeling about homeopathy is that it's a bit like, what is it? There's nothing in it. How can it work? There's no science behind it, which actually is incorrect. There is a lot of scientific provings of, scientific evidence that it works. But the general feeling is that it doesn't, and there's nothing much in it.
I think to me, that makes sense in a way. I'm just trying to find reasons why negative press would want to like focus on it, you know, because essentially with medicine is that the mainstream obviously wants to kind of like monopolize, right? And if we have solutions that, because there is something about this thing of like, you know, we're talking about antibiotics and needing to, our kids being prescribed things and us being prescribed things that actually serve the pharmaceuticals.
It's a business at the end of the day.
Absolutely. But to have those solutions easily accessible without needing a doctor or anybody telling us what to take, the empowerment that comes with that, I can imagine that it would cause issues, you know. So it's interesting, but you said you recently, you're teaching now as part of the college, and you're seeing that there's more people coming back to it.
Yes.
So do you think that when it comes down to it, in essence, people are really seeing the value of it, essentially, and they're just saying, hang on a minute, this is working. I don't care what people are saying. There's so much we can do with this. We need to spread the word. Do you feel that more people are just, in a way, going beyond it now and seeing that there's ways with it?
Well, there's a few things I think at play. I think number one, on a more cosmic note, I guess, I think we are on a cycle back to nature, because homeopathy is an energy medicine. It's taken from, our remedies are taken from nature, from plants and minerals and animals, and many, many other things as well, actually. But we're 60% plants with the remedies in general. So, and I think the reason, I mean, there's a few things I want to say. I don't want to forget them, but I think there's, first of all, a big cycle back to nature. And I think that is happening. Maybe, I mean, we're in Brighton, we're quite sort of
open,
a little bit more open, than maybe other cities in England, perhaps. And I can definitely see this, you know, this sort of like coming away back from constructs that aren't really supporting us, and connecting back to nature, which is ultimately our roots. We're tribal beings. Nature provides us our food, less so now because we're so used to supermarkets and so much manufactured rubbish, actually, if I'm frank again. Which doesn't serve us. It makes us ill. It doesn't feed our vitality in the way nature does. So I think food-wise, going back to nature is so important, like getting your local veggie box, organic veggie box delivered, supporting those farmers that are actually doing that. But also our medicine. And homeopathy is different to herbs in that it doesn't take the plant and the constitution of plant and make it into a liquid or a poultice or a tincture. We use the energy from plants. And I think that homeopathy kind of helps us connect back into nature. So if you have an understanding of what homeopathy is, it completely kind of transforms the way you think about health, your level of responsibility for your health and that of your family, if you have one. And also back to your intuition. What do I feel? What do I feel I really need? Rather than going trotting off to the doctor for somebody else to solve your problems and to tell you the solutions, that it really becomes something that you embody yourself and find solutions. And people, and the form of medicine, homeopathy necessarily isn't for everyone, but it's a fantastic option.
Absolutely. You mentioned the word energy. It's the energy of the plant. How does the energy get extracted though? How, because we have the law of similar. So it's like, if you have the remedies that kind of capture the energy of different sort of energetic states of being.
Okay, so I'm going to go right back.
I'm curious.
Okay, so yes, that's a really important part of homeopathy. It's an energy medicine. It's not a medicine of substance, which is why it gets a negative press. That's where kind of the science can get in and say, well, there's nothing actually in it. How can it work? The fact that there isn't anything in it is its complete strength. The fact that we're not trying to bring molecules into the body in the way herbalism does, and that has a wonderful role to play to support the body. Homeopathy is an energy medicine, and we harness the energies from nature and make it accessible. And when I say it's an energy medicine, acupuncture is an energy medicine as well. Shiatsu is an energy medicine. Reiki, any spiritual healing, all of these are energy medicines, with an awareness that we have an energy body. We're not just a physical body, which is why homeopathy can kind of expand people's consciousness to, well, if this energy medicine can heal me sometimes in an instant. I mean, it can be super miraculous at times, not always, because sometimes it can take longer, but it has that potential.
Sorry, go on.
Well, just the fact that it can do that, these little sugar pills, because the only thing you're taking in your body is a little sugar pill, but that sugar pill carries a vibration, and it is that vibration that is healing. So I can explain.
Tell us a bit about the arnica? So I've got arnica here, which is the most go-to remedy for us.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most popular remedies, well-known remedies.
I'm just going to show people. Normally, you're not supposed to touch it, right? But I'm going to touch it just for the purpose of people seeing it. What happens if we touch it? It takes the energy off? It's like it's not as effective?
Well, it's like, I mean, if that pill holds an energy, then there it is, the little arnica pill, little ball of magic there. So you get a dose of arnica when you touch it, and also you can pass if you're giving a remedy to somebody else and you touch the remedy, then you're kind of contaminating that energy just a little bit. I mean, I always say to mums, don't worry too much about it. If you're giving a remedy and you can't get it in the mouth unless you touch it of your child, for example. You know, your energies are so kind of entwined that, you know, just, it's the most important thing that they get the energy, they get the remedy. And how you do it, you know, is, it's best if you don't touch it if you can.
I
But
get it.
sometimes it's impossible, particularly as a mum in the middle of the night trying to get a remedy for, you know, fever into the system.
We always manage it. But arnica, for instance, is for accidents, for shock, for things like this. So it always chills us out. I love it as a remedy, and I'm very energetically sensitive. So the reason I am sold on homeopathy is because I just see it working, and it works. When it works, it's immediate.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a bit of experimentation to find the right medicine, but I just know that I've always feel really empowered to know that we can reach out to something immediately when we identify. And I love how, as part of your mission, it is like using it as part of day to day, because that's exactly what it's become for us. It's a day-to-day remedy, you know, something that we just like don't think twice about using. And sometimes it's so obvious, the support, you know, that it's like a no-brainer, you know.
Well, go ahead.
No, I want to hear from you, and I'm gonna ask you a question once you're done.
So there's two things to say. One, that's why that when I work with families and parents, that's what I try to do with them. Well, we don't try, this is what we do with them. We create a plan A, which is full of natural options. So if you've got an unwell child or you're treating yourself, I like to educate and inform and kind of equip parents with lots of different options. Homeopathy, natural remedies, bark flower essences, aromatherapy, some herbs. I'm a homeopath. I'm training as a naturopath as well, actually, at the moment. So all of these things will be relevant.
Training on naturopathy as well at the moment.
Are you?
Home. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. It's wonderful to have that sort of breadth. And again, all of these naturopathic options are also from nature, herbs, you know, the essential oils. So with parents, I work a lot to support them to have all these options. And then whatever they used to use, Calpol, antibiotics, that becomes plan B. And then we really equip them with a plan A. And of course, plan B is always there. But the plan A, as parents become more confident, more skilled, and more empowered, you find that you never, or very, very rarely, have to go to plan B. And what you find as well, and what I notice with my children and families that I work with, is the children become less ill. A bit like you were saying for your example. So
it can work
as you use less,
right?
Say again?
It can work preventatively as well.
It can work preventatively, yeah, it can. Although some homeopaths only like to treat what they see. But when you're using remedies to control an infection, for example, rather than turning to antibiotics, it strengthens the body. Whereas antibiotics kind of undermines the body and leaves you more exposed to potentially getting another reinfection or recurrence of whatever you've treated. So homeopathy strengthens the body. So using less of that and less Calpol and antipyretic drugs to reduce fevers, it allows the body's processes to do what they're supposed to be doing. Our body is like so extraordinary. It's like, how can we think that the body would create a fever and for it to be dangerous for the body? I mean, I'm not saying be complacent with a fever. We have to watch and really observe and keep our eye on our children. I always would sleep in the same bed as my children with a fever, and you kind of sleep with one eye open on them. But we also need to come back to the fact that we need to trust our bodies. Our bodies are just beyond, you know, the more we look into our bodies to understand them, the more they realize that we can't understand them because they're just so fantastic and so complex and so intelligent.
You know, Zoe Scanlan, the creator of the quantum healing hypnosis technique, she talked about how our bodies are not meant to be ill. Actually, we are not meant to be ill. When we do get ill, it's something obviously out of alignment, something that we can rebalance back. And it tends to, I mean, and, you know, from what I understand, I think that she also supports that, you know, the real healing happens within us first, you know, that we make that choice, you know. I'm curious to know about, you know, where do you feel the whole belief system that an individual holds? How important is it when we're working with any kind of modality, including homeopathy? You know, I guess particularly the belief around knowing that we can heal ourselves, you know, that we have the capacity to heal something, you know, even quite extreme. Okay. And like, how important do you find belief systems tend to be, or even just our ability to feel positive towards healing and or not so positive?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you know, I think first of all to say that homeopathy, you don't have to understand it for it to work. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And also to say, actually, just going on from what you were saying previously, that it's an important awareness to have of our own body's self-healing mechanism. That homeopathy is a nudge. It's not taking over. It's not doing the healing. It's nudging our self-healing system. And you're right, given the right ingredients, giving the right environment, I think our body is self-healing. A friend of mine just last night was saying that talking about how animals in nature, when there's something wrong with them, they just stop. They lie down on the ground and they rest until they feel better. And I think it literally could be as simple as that, Sumaya. You know, we live in such a way that is so busy. We've got so many pressures on us, and we just often don't have the time to rest and recover and have convalescence. I mean, convalescence is like, that's even a word that's hardly even used these days, but convalescence is the period after you've got better from a fever or flu, where you have a few days afterwards to kind of just recover yourself. You know, I mean, convalescence isn't even, it's like you have to get better. You have to take your, you know, suppressive drugs just to get back on your feet, get rid of the headache, stop the diarrhea, just so you can get back on with work.
You can be back a product of society and a part of the machine, right? So
exactly.
And I think there's the point to this, isn't it? That in a way that the importance of really kind of supporting ourselves, like we're not that the convalescence is not really geared for modern society in many respects, you know, in this actually it reminds us that it's about coming back to natural cycles, taking the time is needed, but the way society is designed, unless we kind of have the courage to step out of it, it can be hard for people to consider this. And it's funny because I've really incorporated teaching how to integrate our natural cycles in the way we work in self-employment with my clients. I really use that quite a lot, really understanding our own natural cycles, what we need, what's not supportive in order for us to thrive, you know. I'm curious to talk a little bit about constitutional remedies, because you've offered that to my son. It's something that gives me a lot of peace that he has that. I'd love to find out mine, and I'd love to hear more from you about it. And just to also put it in the context that even if, say, we had a session with him for something very specific, what I love about homeopathy is that the initial consultation goes very deep in that you really learn about a person's history from all sort of perspectives, psycho-spiritual, physical, everything, like life events, traumas, all that kind of stuff. So it really gives you a rounded perspective of what's going on for this person. So I'd love to know, in the context of that, a little bit about what is constitutional remedy. Does everyone have one, and how is that helpful?
Okay, all right. I just want to say, before I speak about that, just on the last point, I just wanted to really clarify that you asked about people, do they need to believe about homeopathy for it to work? I just really want to see.
Not so much even necessarily about homeopathy, but it's a question that I tend to speak a lot with people who are in healing modalities. It's not necessarily just connected to their modality, but where do we start? How do people really feel about, like, belief systems, and how does it affect, do you feel, our ability to get better or not, you know?
Okay. Well, I think it's first of all, so the placebo effect. So in any form of healing, there's this placebo effect, I believe. Even if you went to the doctor, there'd be some level of placebo. I'm going to do something good for myself, and it makes me feel good that I'm doing it. A child will have some element of placebo, the fact that a mother is caring, giving love, and giving a remedy. So there's some aspect of this. I think, but I mean, people also put homeopathy down to, it's just placebo. But there are homeopathic vets There are farmers that use 100% homeopathy. They use it on crops as well, in gardens, agri-homeopathy. And of course, babies and children, they don't realise that they're getting a remedy and they also heal. So the placebo's there, and I think there's some positive, energetic aspect of consultation and a healing and receiving a remedy that just makes you feel like, you know, I'm doing something wonderful for myself and I'm receiving something that's going to be healing for me. So I think there's that aspect of it. And like you say, in the consultation, they are very in depth. Like we'll spend a good hour, sometimes an hour and a half with somebody, really understanding, like you say, their emotional state, their physical state, the symptoms, how they feel. Because what we see as homeopaths, it's because the homeopathy prescription is very, very individualized. We might have 3 people coming for migraines, and they may all leave your consultation room with a different remedy, because it's very much about what is the cause, what's behind the migraines, what makes them worse, what makes them better. And a migraine will manifest slightly differently, in the same way flu or COVID manifest very differently for every individual. So you can't just have one size fits all, and that's very much not homeopathy. We will, if somebody came with like a flu or a migraine, I would take down all the information about that physical symptom, but then I would look behind that in a way. Look at what was going on before you got there. Why was what made your vitality drop that you could get flu or pneumonia or shingles? Whenever people come with shingles, they say, oh, I've got shingles. I'm like, what is that about? Your vitality must have dropped really significantly for that to come out. I always know someone will have had a big shock, maybe a vaccination, something that's quite a shock for the body, whether it's emotional or whether it's physical. And there is always, without exception, a reason why we get ill. It's not karma. Well, maybe on some level there is something like that, but it's not, there's never coincidence, always a reason. As a homeopath, we always look for the root cause and work to heal that, as well as the physical symptoms in the moment as well.
I think you've just also described really well the reason why somebody would benefit from seeing a homeopath, as opposed to just getting the booklet.
Doing first aid,
With getting the booklet is helpful to point some things, but it might be, first of all, you get a few different options. It's not just one thing. And second of all, it's also the thing that you don't know, because there's such a specific configuration of like your psychosomatic, your psychospiritual, your background, your trauma, your everything that comes into place with this, right?
Now, where were we? There was 2 things I wanted to say.
So just talking about seeing a homeopath as opposed to getting the remedies. Yeah,
exactly. So I think, so constitutional prescriptions and going to see a professional homeopath and having a constitutional consultation, that really covers chronic illness, long-term issues, emotional difficulties, shock, trauma. Whereas what you're talking about with your homeopathy kit, I think about layers of prescribing. It's not exactly like this, but this is just makes it kind of fits in my brain in that way.
So I'm very curious on this.
So you can treat on day-to-day acute minor illnesses, coughs, colds, fevers, bumps, bruises, maybe not constipation actually, because that can be more of a chronic thing. But if you've just been on an aeroplane, got really dehydrated, and then you're constipated when you arrive, that's an acute illness. So whereas a chronic constipation is where you'd go to see a homeopath, where you've been suffering, your body has a tendency to be constipated, and it gets worse or better depending how stressed you are, what your diet's like, and that's what you'd go to see a homeopath about. Whereas you can treat bumps and bruises, coughs, colds, flus, fevers with homeopathy using, as you showed, your basic homeopathy kit. And so that's really my work, supporting parents to learn first aid, day-to-day, homeopathy for everyday illnesses. So that's one level. And I kind of think of that as the most superficial outside. Whereas when you go for a consultation, you look so deeply at someone. You look at their kind of spiritual path at times. You know, people come and sometimes they just need like quite a classical remedy, a traditional homeopathic remedy. But there are so many different people that have so many different energies, and now there are these beautiful remedies which actually if you did a consultation, I can imagine you would
I still want a consultation soon, because there's a couple of things that I want to address anyway, but I just know that this is overdue and it needs to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's certain people that the way, and this is again, it's just the way I sort of compartmentalize different remedies and different people that receive these different remedies, because there's also these other remedies now which are not traditional homeopathic remedies. Homeopathic remedies, we have thousands, and they're being developed and what we call proved all the time. And there's a whole wonderful group of homeopaths that prove what we call meditatively proved remedies. And so so going back to your question, which I don't think we've kind of covered actually, is how a remedy is made. But and the way a traditional homeopathic remedy is made is we take take chamomile, the plant, from the garden, and our remedy of chamomile is chamomilla. And remind me, Samaya, to talk about the law of similars, just to explain that to people, because that really explains how homeopathy works, which is quite makes it more tangible for people to understand.
I think so. That really spoke to me when I found out about it.
Yeah. That's a really great kind of what we call a homeopathic principle, which really helps explain. But we're looking at taking the chamomilla flower from the garden, you put it in a body of alcohol, and this is how Bach flower essences are made. That body of liquid with all of those different plants in our case, we've just got chamomile in there. That liquid takes on the essence of the remedy. We call that the mother tincture. It's left for some time, probably a few weeks. I don't know exactly how long. And then we use, so a Bach flower essence, that would be the essence they would use in their flower essences. We would then take that liquid and we would turn it into, we would take 1 drop out of that liquid and put it in 99 drops of water. And we would do something called succussion, which is, I'll just get I've got my little remedy here, which I can show you. So this is actually a liquid remedy, which I have all my remedies in. You probably can't see it. So they're not pill form like you. I have liquid remedies, which I use to potentize my pills. So you would have this, you'd have a little bottle with 99 drops of water and 1 drop of your mother tincture of your chamomile. And then you do this. And this is called succussion. And in the olden days, they would always do that succussion on a Bible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. A leather-bound Bible, but we have different ways of doing it now. So, and that then brings in a vibration into that liquid, which is where the vibrational aspect of homeopathy begins. We would then take another drop, 1 drop out of this solution and put it in another 99 drops of water. And we would do our succussion again. That becomes 2C. So our first succussion is 1C. The second dilution and succussion becomes 2C. Wow. Again, you take 1 drop out of the 2C, put it in another 99 drops of water, succuss it, and that becomes 3C.
And when you talk about C's, that's the potency of
the strength. Right? That stands for centesimal. So that is 100, is in like Roman C. So we do that. That's because of the 99 drops of water and the 1 drop that makes it up to 100.
It's getting all very alchemical, and I'm loving all of it.
Yeah, this is where it becomes very scientific, interestingly.
I love it. It's funny also the movement that you do that, because it's like what they do with the coffee. Like when they just bang it.
When they push it down.
But it's an interesting movement, isn't it? And also the old TVs. Do you remember the old TVs? They used to bang them.
To make them work.
I'm a little bit off the wall. I like to go in very different territories. I love that though, and I love how you talked about the tincture. Can you tell me though, then the constitutional is a very interesting one, because it becomes more about who the person is and what they need to feel supported when they feel where they don't feel connected with themselves in the same way. Like, I know when we came to you for Chaska, you gave us the solution, the remedies, which have been really helpful for his infection. But also you said, let's work out his constitutional, because there was I think we did 2 appointments. The remedy for the infection was another, but the other one was some kind of like psycho-emotional stuff going on. And that's when you brought in A, for his moods, and B, for his highly sensitive nature, and the constitutional remedy that would support him. So I love that. I love that we all have do we all have a constitutional remedy, I guess? And what is the magic?
Yeah, so it's interesting, the constitutional. I would say that as a child, a baby, it's much easier to work out what their constitutional remedy is, because I think of our healing work with homeopathy is in layers. I think, like, you know, therapy and talking therapy thinks about this as well. You're like peeling back the layers of the onion. So when you've got a baby that hasn't had many layers of trauma or, you know, illness or medication or whatever, you know, creates sort of disharmony in our system, it's very clear to see a baby or a toddler's, their constitution. And what you're doing is you're matching the picture of that person and their character and the way they interact with the environment, how their body is, whether they're hot or cold, how they sleep, how their digestion is, how their stools are, how their skin is, all of these things. And also things that they're frightened of, whether they're, how their mind works, whether they're social, whether they like groups or just one-to-one connections, what makes them feel frightened. All of these things we take in to build a picture of a character. And then what a homeopath does in a constitutional consultation is we match that to the picture of the remedy. So we, as I said, we have thousands of remedies, and what we do is, and all of the remedies have a sort of emotional picture and a physical picture, and all the level of detail as well in between. And what we do is we are matching.
What do you mean emotional and physical picture? What do you mean by that?
Well, okay, let me show you. So a remedy, like for example, pulsatilla, that's a really common remedy that I give a lot to children.
Yeah.
So pulsatilla is it's in your first aid kit, yeah. And on a first aid level, you would use pulsatilla to treat like colds and coughs where they're really sort of like the child has really green, yellow, thick mucus, very changeable symptoms, and the mood of the child is very like whiny, clingy to the mum, like tearful. They just want to be cuddled and held. So that's like a picture of like pulsatilla. It has a wider application, but this is just to give just as an example. So their character is like that. And what you'll find is you can treat, whether you're treating a cold, an earache, teething, pulsatilla will help with it if it fits the emotional picture and the physical picture of pulsatilla. So for example, teething children, if you went to the shop and bought some homeopathic teething granules, for example, Nelson's, the homeopathic pharmacy, make a great teething granules. They're made from chamomilla, 6C. Wow. So many parents go and buy chamomilla and they'll give it. The chances are 50-50 that the child, maybe a bit less probability actually, that their child is in a chamomilla state. Their child, and if they give the remedy and the child is in a chamomilla state, that 6C chamomilla teething granules will really help that child that's teething. But what happens is some children their character isn't a chamomilla type of character. They don't go into a chamomilla state when they're teething, and I'll explain what a chamomilla state is in a moment. They may be a constitutional pulsatilla. So when they teeth, they're like, "Mummy, hurting. Oh, please pick me up. No, don't leave the room. Don't leave me. Just stay with me. Stay with me." That child will not benefit from chamomilla. They need pulsatilla. Whereas if you have another child that is teething and they are angry, inconsolable, the pain seems unfathomable, the parents tearing their hair out because the child wants to be picked up, then they want to be put down, they want a toy, then they throw the toy. They're really angry, a bit like a woman in labour as well. They're in pain and they're angry and they're swearing at their husband and cursing at the husband. How did you get me into this situation? A child in a chamomilla state is in that state as well, whether they're teething or in labour, doesn't matter. Chamomilla will help that. And the same with a labouring mother. If they're in pain, labouring, and they're whining, and I mean, whining, that sounds terrible, doesn't it? But if they're
kind of, yeah,
like, oh, hug me, support me. Oh, I don't know if I can do it. And a hug and connection and love and support helps them. They're much more likely they'll benefit from pulsatilla. So the homeopathic remedies, you're matching a picture of a person in a particular state with the remedy. And that could be like an earache. So a child could have an earache. And you might look at the ear and think, oh, it doesn't really look like much is going on. But they're whining and clingy and in this chamomilla state. And you might give them chamomilla and it may, they're in a pulsatilla state, whiny, clingy, sad, crying. You might give them pulsatilla and it might help. You might put them to bed later that night and they wake up with a raging fever, bright red ear, really in pain. And then they may have gone into a different remedy state, like belladonna. Belladonna is red, hot, pulsating, feeling the heat off of it, and then they'll benefit from belladonna rather than
Yeah.
pulsatilla.
So it's kind of like you're kind of witnessing how how they present.
Yes.
And from the way they present and how they're showing up, it's kind of like you helping with the right remedy, you matching that. So you bring in the thing that will match the remedy, that will match that kind of particular way of showing up, so that they come back to a more natural state,
A balance. Yes, exactly.
More balanced, and in a way it just brings back that equilibrium, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't stop the body healing. If you give a remedy to a child with a fever, the body won't cut the fever in the way that an antipyretic drug would.
Yeah.
It supports the body to complete what it's doing. So you might see a fever peak and then drop, and then the child goes to sleep and they're fine and they recover.
And what I love, I'm so glad we're talking about this, because come on, isn't that really what a remedy is about? The real function of medicine is to heal, is never been to suppress. But
Yes,
because
absolutely.
again, we have become such products of a like trauma-based kind of productivity societies, we've kind of put anything to do with healing secondary, and they've made us feel to like that actually healing is suppressing is healing, because we don't feel it anymore. But because we don't feel it doesn't mean it's been sorted or it's been dealt with. It's suppressed.
That's so important.
The fact that that's been like, that's become the norm for like modern society is, I think it's one of those travesties that, you know, that is just so insane that we've allowed this, you know. And I do really hope that as part of the expansion of consciousness that the planet is going through, that I think that is one of them. And I like to hope that more of this will be happening. People realize that actually suppressing an illness is not the same as treating it. Just because we get back to work and get to do things. And, you know, you have then years down the line, people experiencing all sorts of things, right?
Well, we have a term in homeopathy that is feeling better in yourself. So when you give the homeopathic remedy, it may be that you don't, that say you give a remedy to a child who has got a fever, or a woman who is got IBS. There's a feeling when you get the right remedy, it just makes you, on the deepest core of you, you kind of just get this feeling of like, oh, I just feel better. Wellness. The physical symptoms may still be there, but because with homeopathy you're dealing with energy, you're dealing with the deepest core of somebody, and once that's aligned, the physical body will naturally follow. And this is the difference between what you're saying about sort of modern medicine, is that you may have diarrhea, you get given Imodium to stop that diarrhea, therefore you are cured. Whereas many people, I think they feel like, yeah, but I still don't feel great. And homeopathy is the complete opposite. It's not a sticking plaster. Just because you get rid of symptoms, it doesn't mean that we're healthy. We go to the absolute core of the person and make them, the aim is to make them feel better in themselves. And then just that balance and harmony will ripple out onto all the other layers of our being that we are. Absolutely. And, you know, I'm curious to hear from you about this. Like, when do you feel, I knew when I had that condition with my skin, I didn't go to a dermatologist. I just knew I had to go to a homeopath. When is it that with a lot of practices, we know that if something happens, you know, it's like a structural, postural thing, we'll go to an osteopath or a craniosacral, you know, but like how do we know? With homeopathy, gets one of those tricky things where we don't always necessarily know when is it the point where, you know, you better go to a homeopath than a dermatologist. Or maybe it's not a case of like either this or, maybe it's a combination. I don't know. But I'm curious that I chose to go to a homeopath as opposed to somebody who's going to look at my skin, you know? Yeah. I mean, I think my feeling is these days, it's a lot about, it's a lot about the person as well. Because sometimes I think we're more drawn to a particular person, because I think we're all on a journey, energetic journey. And some people we really resonate with and we have an exchange naturally with them. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's about, if you meet someone, if you're on a healing journey and you meet someone, sometimes it doesn't matter if they're a homeopath or a therapist. You just have a sense that some exchange with that person is going to help you on your healing journey. So that's the first thing to say. But I would say that homeopathy can help with any condition, physical, emotional, spiritual, mental. So it can cover any condition. So at any point, I mean, people use me as their kind of doctor. They don't go to the doctor. They come, if there's something wrong with them, they come to me. And many, many families and people use me and many other of the wonderful homeopaths in that way. Yeah. So it's a kind of alternative. But like I said before, there is a place for everything, and homeopathy won't help you if you've been in a car accident and your arm's hanging off. It may help with the trauma and it may help with the healing of it. But that's where our emergency services are so fantastic, that they can come, they can get your arm back on, you know, just using it as a sort of a crude example. But there's a time and a place where operations and surgery, where they can do a hip replacement. Homeopathy can't necessarily do that. If, you know, it can help recover, and maybe it could help like regenerate, you know, using tissue salts or something, the bone. But it's there's a place for everything. And I think it's more following your instinct of who and what you're drawn to, because homeopathy and herbalism, you know, all of these natural therapies, they all have such a huge potential that's really untapped massively untapped, I would say. So it's what we're drawn to.
And I think it connects to what we were talking about, the sort of energetic and psycho-spiritual aspect to it. I personally feel, as a, you know, being a psychic healer and being an energy kind of like healer since 2006, I started my journey. But my whole spiritual journey and the journey to growth, I guess, started from like 22 years ago. And the energetic dimension is really, really important to me, and it's really kind of central. And I just felt it immediately. You know, I think I was always quite open to see it. And it does go very deep. It does feel like integrative. It's quite integrative in terms of the emotional, mental body, in terms of the physical body. So in that respect, I think works really well too. And I guess it kind of like, you know, it addresses it from so many different angles, I think. But like you said, of course, you know, there's some things that maybe first they might need immediately access to, if it's something a lot more extreme, you know, surgery or whatever, you know. And why not consult your doctor as well, you know, especially if you're kind of new to this journey of using homeopathy. Absolutely consult the doctor, but it's like, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, and then using intuition to know, okay, maybe actually I need to lean more towards homeopathy, something natural, really allow my body to show me what it can do for me. I mean, some parents and some people that use homeopathy and that I work with, they will go to the doctor. They'll go to the doctor to, you know, get a diagnosis or to get some test results done. And then that will give them a fuller picture of where they're at. And then they might choose a natural therapist to go to with that information, you know. And so, and the doctor may prescribe antibiotics. They say, thank you very much for the prescription. It's an option for them. But if they can treat it naturally, like we were saying before, then they may never need to use that antibiotics or the antidepressants. Absolutely. I'm curious to have a session with you, because I'm waiting for an MRI scan, which I'm being given the information by my guides that it's gonna come out clear. But the fact is that I've spent 2 full days in the eye hospital trying to understand why my left side is deteriorating. And generally, my left side is not 100%. I have 70% ear kind of hearing from what I call my shamanic illness, like for 5 weeks. It lasted back in 2015. I have this ear now kind of being very blurry, and it's not corrected via prescription. It cannot. I have very high prescription, but they can't do anything about it. So it's one of those mysteries, right? And I'm really curious with this, and I have a sense of a connection, psycho-spiritual connection to this that makes a lot of sense to me. But it's one of those things that at the moment feels to be a hidden, unknown, mysterious condition, as the doctors are saying. But my guides are saying it's corrective, like it can be corrected, but it might not be through like that particular pathway. You know? So I'm curious to see, to maybe have a session and look at that, kind of how I can support the left side of my body, which feels more like defective or more like weaker than the right. The right is strong. The left side not so much, you know, and
Mm,
it's not happening just on, it happened on ear, it happened this, my migraines are left-sided when I get them. I've been getting them for 10 years. So I think
mm,
that it'd be
mm.
very interesting to do,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
connect actually.
Yeah, well, the remedies, interestingly, just to say, the remedies have, some remedies are more right-sided remedies and some are more left-sided.
Interesting.
Yeah, so if you have an earache that's more left-sided, I think, I'm testing myself here, but I think, for example, pulsatilla, I think lachesis is more left-sided, pulsatilla is more right-sided. I'll have to check this actually,
Yeah.
but yeah, but anyway, it doesn't really matter about the detail. The fact is that
Yeah.
remedies do have, like, we take into account whether they're more right-sided or left-sided, the
Yeah.
symptoms. So yeah, it's interesting.
Also, Zoe, before we go, I've noticed, this is crazy, by the way. Not crazy, but I
Mm,
love this. There are thousands of remedies, right? There's so
mm,
many remedies out there. I didn't
mm.
know that. There's a new wave of remedies. I don't know how new it is. It was new to me, at least. At the Helios website, you can get like remedies for different crystal remedies. So you can have rose
Okay,
gold.
yeah,
I'd love to
yes.
do that. There's different, like, so I love crystals. A lot of people do crystal healing, crystal therapy. So you can
Mm.
get the essence of a crystal through a remedy.
Yeah, this was what I was speaking about earlier that I didn't quite finish actually. So
Yeah.
I was saying there's lots of different remedies, like the basic remedies are taken from plants, minerals, animals. Like there's like sepia, which was the first remedy I was given, is taken from the ink of a cuttlefish, for example. Whereas we've got other remedies, plant remedies from chamomile flower, arnica and bellis perennis, they're taken from the daisy families. And then minerals, sulfur, phosphorus, kelp carb is taken from the inside of an oyster shell. So there's remedies taken from all sorts of parts of nature. Whereas these new remedies that I was just touched on earlier but didn't quite finish, called the meditatively proved remedies. And this is exactly what you're talking. And I was saying that when I do a consultation, there's different people that kind of fit different remedies.
I think
There's
I
more
might do
earthy
them.
types that like kind of fit with the more traditional. But there's more sort of people with different energy. We all have such different energies. When you sit, well, from my point of view, when I sit with different people, you can feel people's different energies so much. And so these more, I think of them as slightly more esoteric. And yeah, there's remedies made out of emerald, rose quartz. I use them regularly. Oak is for grounding and strengthening. Rose quartz is all about healing the heart. It's very calming. It's very nurturing. Emerald I use actually to help, well, there's lots of aspects of emerald, but I use it when the body needs to let go of something. So on a physical level, if they were having a tooth extracted, an old rotten tooth that the body kind of needs to let go of, emerald can help that energetic letting go. There's also remedies to really go out there. There's remedies made out of Berlin Wall, when the Berlin Wall came down. Yeah, that is very, very fantastic remedy for, like, if somebody's very, very stuck and you can give Berlin Wall and it just literally like just creates such a shift in people. It's such an incredible remedy. Yeah.
I'm loving this so much.
I've just got my little book here. I'll just have a look at the contents page and tell you. We use ruby, amethyst, ayahuasca.
Oh my God, what do people take ayahuasca for? The actual, is it for consciousness expansion or?
Yeah, I mean, it's used for lots of different things. There's a real, yeah, do you know what? I can't remember off the top of my head what all of these are for, but it's very much for like spiritual cleansing. Let me see.
And are these remedies that people can just buy, can access, like they can just buy?
Yeah, you can buy them, but these remedies, yeah, you can buy them, but I would say these remedies are kind of very deep acting, and it's probably better. They're not like your homeopathic first aid kit. They don't come with any guidance, and it's probably important to be at least in conversation. Excuse me, I'm just going to sneeze. Hang on. Oh no, it's gone. It's probably good to be in consultation or to be prescribed these. But saying that, like I do give, like I often give like rose quartz out along with oak, and I might give someone who's going through a really hard time. They've been through quite a lot of trauma, because rose quartz is just so soothing for the soul. Like some people that I remember, a man coming and having some remedies, and I gave him his prescription, and I remember him coming back and saying, I don't know about those other remedies, but I really like that rose quartz. He was he wasn't quite sure about homeopathy, but you could really feel the energy of the rose quartz. It was very beautiful. Yeah, and we use color remedies as well. Like I use yellow, you know, and they match with the chakra. So if I'm working with someone about expression, I might give blue for the throat or green for the.
This is perfect, because I occasionally, at the moment, I seem to be doing referrals to other service providers from clients that I get. And what's interesting, and I'll definitely bear that in mind as well, because you do this work, obviously. What I love about what you're sharing is that I often, when I tune in psychically to people, we colors comes up, chakras, what kind of is out of balance and needs more rebalancing. And, you know, there's meditation or practices or visualizations people can do. We do energy work sometimes to rebalance, depending how they sign up, what and we end up doing. But I think this would work so well with this work, you know, getting remedies that are more on the meditational capacity.
Yes, very much.
Would actually really help bring that equilibrium more in. And I can actually think of a specific client right now that hopefully she'll see. I'll let her, I'll nudge her to watch this, because I think she would benefit from some of this. I just love how more expansive this is, apart from the basic remedies that we talked about.
Yeah, honestly.
And now, do I remember well, or is it completely my imagination that there's planetary energies as well?
It's really, I mean, that's something. I mean, this kind of then blows my mind, because there's like different, like we have tissue salts in homeopathic remedy that each relate to like the star signs. So you can get a tissue salt for your star sign, but each of the remedies also has a planetary connection. And I mean, I don't know, I'd love to know more, you know. I mean, there's just so much to learn about in this, on our, you know, in this world. And I'm so sure that everything joins up, you know, our planets. And this is an interesting point that I would like to make, that I feel like we have been consciously suppressed. We've kind of been consciously cut off from our spiritual being and our spirit support and our spirit team. And that's been a very conscious thing. And that also makes me wonder whether that's why homeopathy has been suppressed, because it has that potential to heal on all of these different layers and reconnect us to ourselves, our spirit, nature, intuition, all of these faculties that have kind of been, I believe, it's a bit cynical, but I do genuinely believe it, consciously cut off from by the system, whatever that you believe that to be. And I think homeopathy has this capacity to reconnect us in so many ways. Okay, I think there was something else I was going to say, but I've lost it now.
You know, I felt that at times, like, I think the conversation felt really rich and very passionate. I think we're both passionate essentially about the realm of energy and the support we can receive from it. And I love seeing, obviously, I can tell that you've got a lot of depth and knowledge on homeopathy, and I think you communicated a lot of how it can support us, but also the kind of the passion that came from it felt very strong. So I really love this conversation. I kind of feel like this might not be the last time we connect. I feel like I might want something more again. I don't know if it's in the context of just knowing that I can, you know, also signpost people to you, but I really loved having this conversation with you, Zoe, and I think a session with you is also overdue. You have sent me some of your links. Obviously, you have the book that we sent the link to below this video as well. Once again, I'm not wearing my reading glasses, but
Homeopathy and natural remedies for children. Yeah,
okay,
for parents who want to start that journey, you know, to treating their children themselves.
I can say that as a parent, being able to offer this to my son, and obviously for me as well, having that support has felt so empowering. And with homeopathy, it's one of those things that when it works and when it's the right thing, it kicks in straight away. Like you've even mentioned in your son's condition with the skin, the evening session you started seeing, but the day after you also, you know, I know with the stress related ones or whatever, it kicks in straight away. Like there's no mistaking it. And obviously there's the different volumes and the potency depending on as well. But it's been really lovely having this conversation. Thank you so much. The links
My pleasure.
to connect with you. For those of you who you know, resonate with it, hopefully you got some really juicy things from it. And feel free to leave any questions that you have below this video. Feel free to connect with Zoe directly if you want to. Have a really fantastic time over the festive season, Zoe, and thank you so much coming on to chat to me.
My pleasure, Samaya. Lovely to have this time with you as well.
And bye bye, everyone. See you again soon.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.